All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Shabbat Shalom in our Temple Beth Abraham courtyard, Murray Davis courtyard, and those who are watching on YouTube only, because we are, hopefully if you're on Facebook, you saw the message that you needed to switch to YouTube. We're going to try that for a while. Well, we're not quite on yet. Almost. Possibly people are just seeing me talking and saying, what's wrong with my sound? All right, here we go. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to all who are here in the Murray Davis courtyard and those who might be watching on YouTube. We're not going to be on Facebook for a while. So participation, if you're here, I know rules are changing, but we're still not really considered a small gathering, and it's possible that not everybody here is vaccinated or fully vaccinated yet. So that has to do with the singing. You can sing, but only if no one else can hear you. So quietly with your mask on. And I wish it were different. I really do. Nothing I like more than hearing everybody's voices. And so all of you, whether you're watching or you're live, you have to promise me when we're allowed to sing that you're going to sing really loud. Because I'm often complaining, you're not singing loud enough, not enough ruach. You got to appreciate it and just belt it out when you can, but not tonight. All right, page 1, the additional soul we get on Shabbat, Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman, Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman, Mishoch Avdecha. El Ritzonecha Mishoch Avdecha Ya la 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 El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Aya Yishtachavei Elai Ya la 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 el mul hadarecha. Let's go to Yismachu Hashamayim, page 6. Yismachu Hashamayim, Yismachu Hashamayim, Yismachu Hashamayim. Tagel ha'areh Yiram ha'avum melo'o Yiram hayam Yiram to Romamu, page 12, bottom of page 12. Ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. All right, page 13, Mizmor LeDavid. Mizmor LeDavid, Havul Adonai Bnei Elim, אהבו לאדוני, כבוד ועוז, איי איי איי, אהבו לאדוני, כבוד שמו ישתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, כל אדוני על המים אל הכבוד הרים, אדוני על מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, איי איי איי, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, וירכירם כמו עגל לבנון, ואת סיריון כמו בן רעמים, איי איי איי, כל אדוני חוצב לבוד אש, כל אדוני יחיל מדבר, יחיל אדוני מדבר קרש, כל אדוני יחולל איילות, ויחסוף יערות, ובהיכלו כולו אומר כבוד, איי איי איי, אדוני למבוא ישב וישב, אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, היי איי 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 Yai nai nai nai, yai nai nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai 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 nai 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 nai, yai nai 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 nai, yai nai 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 nai. All right, we turn to Lecha Dodi, page 15, oh, they're no longer hiding. Lila and Stella, we know you're here. Shabbat shalom to you. Lecha Dodi, this one you kind of know and like, but you can keep doing your gymnastics. That works too, whatever you want. I'm happy you're here. Lecha Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela, la 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 la, lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela, lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, hishmi el hamiyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem tiferet v'liti la 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 lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki imekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha. So ma ose b'machshava tchila la 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 lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela, lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela. Bottom of 17. Yamin usmol tifarotzi, et Adonai taritzi, al yad ish ben parzi, v'nismecha v'nagila la 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 lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela, lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela. We rise and face the entrance. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam v'simcha toch emunei am segula, boi kala lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabela. And we say to any mourners in our midst, Hamakom lechem etchem b'tok shavei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you with all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We may be seated, and again, if you're watching tonight, I believe we have multi-camera angles tonight, so the setup is a little bit different tonight than normal. Josh continued to do a little bit of experimentation tonight. All right, page 19, Psalm for Shabbat, Psalm 92. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot le'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, lehagid baboker chasdecha, ve'emunatcha balelot, alei asor ve'alei navel, alei higayon bechinor. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot le'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Continue silently, 19 and 20. Tzadik amar yifrach, kerez balvanon yisgeh, shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot, Eloheinu yafrichu, od yenuvun beseva, deshenim v'rahananim yiyu lehagid, keshar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo. Page 21. Adonai melach geot lavesh, lavesh Adonai azitazar, aftikon tevel baltimot, nachon kisacha meaz mamat, nasu nerot Adonai, nasu nerot kolam, yisu nerot och yam. Mi kolod mayim, mayim rabim adirim, mishpereyam, Adir bamarom Adonai, erotecha ne'emnu meod, bevetecha nava kodesh Adonai orech yamin. Please rise for the Baruch Hu, call to prayer, page 22. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Hanayim Varach Leolam Va'ed, Baruch Hanayim Varach Leolam Va'ed, Baruch et Adonai Lemelech Olam Asher Bivaro Ma'ariv Aravim. We may be seated. Boreyom V'Layla, Goleler Mipnei Choshek V'Choshek Mipnei Hor, V'Yom U'Vein Layla, Mavdil Ben Yom U'Vein Layla, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, L'chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Leolam Va'ed, Baruch et Adonai Hamari Varavim. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavita Amcha Ahavita. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadita, otanu limadita. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbenu, v'kumeinu nesiach Bechukecha, Benismat, Bedivrei Toratecha. Torahcha Uvmitzvotecha leolam va'ed Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu Uvahem laila ne yomam v'laila Ve'avatecha al tasir Mimenu le'olamim Baruch Ata Adonai Ohev Amo Ohev Amo Israel. Page 25. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele Asher anochi metzavecha Hayom alevavecha V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham B'shivtecha b'veitecha Uvlechtecha v'derech Uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha Ukshartam leot al yadecha Ve'ilu totafot bein einecha Uktavtam al mizuzot beitecha Uvisharecha v'yam Bottom of 29. Leman tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvot. Tai v'item kedoshim lohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim leot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet. Adonai Elohechem emet. Em v'na kozot v'kam aleinu ki... Malkuto Bratsun Kiblu Alehem Moshe V'nei Yisrael Chanashira B'simcha Rabba V'yamru Chulam Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh Nora tehilot Osef eleh Nora tehilot Osef eleh Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Malchutecha ra'u v'necha Bokeh hayam lifnei Moshe Ze'eli anu ve'amru Ze'eli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 V'ne'amar kifranayit Yaakov Gulman chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'amidenu malkeinu lechaim, hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'amidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ushmor tzitenu uvoenu lechaim ushalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'amidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'amidenu malkeinu lechaim. Frosalenu sukat shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai, aparei sukat shalom aleinu, v'kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Please rise for Vishamru, page 34. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. 35. ויקרא ויקרא שמי רבה, ומה דברה חירותי, וימלך מלכותי בחיי חון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה, ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לעלמי עלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, יתברך וירמם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו amen. Private Amidah, pages 37 through 48. עושה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. Page 53, Garav Yikra Shemei Rabbah, V'amar Yivrach Yerutei V'amlich Malchutei V'chayachon V'yamechon V'chei Chol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman Kari V'imeru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Leolam Olam Me'almaya Yitbarach Yiparach V'ishtabach V'yiparvim Ram V'naseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shmei Dekudsha Brichu Le'elam Min Kol Berchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiram B'yama V'imeru Amen. תקבלת צלות נענבותון לכל ישראל, קרמה והונדי ושמעיה וימרו, אמן. יש להם רב מן שמעיה, וחיים אלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, וימרו, amen. It's president time, meaning we're going to talk about one of the presidents and their relationship to the Jewish community, and we are up to Benjamin Harrison this week. You know, as you go through this, certain themes emerge, right? Of course, one, you know, for a while it was all about slavery and the kind of dichotomy between keeping the slaves together, keeping the country together versus getting rid of slavery. And a lot of the presidents struggle with that. And their relationship to the Jewish community also was sometimes centered around that. Right now, for the last few, it's all about Russia and the pogrom. And what's happening over there affects what's happening over here and the Jewish community's relationships to the president. Benjamin Harrison he was a Republican, he was Presbyterian. He was really from a very American historical family. His great-grandfather signed the Declaration of Independence, and his grandfather was the short-lived President William Henry Harrison. He lost the popular vote in his election to Grover Cleveland, but he won the Electoral College. He was, like I said, from the Republican Party. Grover Cleveland was the first Democrat post-slavery. He was a very principled and ethical human being, despite being president during the age of the robber barons, which was a difficult thing to be. The Jews he knew included Simon Wolf. That's the same guy I've spoken about week after week, the inauguration planner, philanthropist, advisor to every Republican president from Abraham Lincoln to Woodrow Wilson. He also knew Solomon Hirsch, who was a state legislator and a merchant in Oregon, who succeeded Oscar Strauss as the minister to Turkey. He was appointed by Harrison. He met several times in the White House with a group of Jewish leaders, including Simon Wolf, Solomon Hirsch, Oscar Strauss, Jesse Seligman, and Jacob Schiff, some of the financiers. And as a result of those meetings, he registered formal protests with Russia, with the Tsarist governments of Russia, who were doing terrible things to Jews. In addition to the pogroms, they were conscripting Jewish soldiers at 14 years old into the army for 30 years. So a lot of protests without. He also, at one time, he commissioned the U.S. Commissioner of Immigration to travel to Russia to investigate anti-Semitism there. And he wrote a brutal report. Harrison, in an address to Congress, said the following: The government has found occasion to express in a friendly spirit, but with much earnestness, to the government of the Tsar its serious concern because of the harsh measures now being enforced against the Hebrews in Russia. By the revival of anti-Semitic laws, great numbers of these unfortunate people have been constrained to abandon their homes and leave the empire by reason of the impossibility of subsistence within the pale to which it sought to confine them. For those who don't know what that is, the Pale of Settlement was the area that they were restricted for living. The Hebrew is never a beggar, Harrison said to Congress. He always kept the law, lives by toil, often under severe and oppressive civil restrictions. It is also true that no race, sect, or class has more fully cared for its own. He was also a devout Presbyterian, as I mentioned, and one of the early Christian Zionists. He was really encouraging immigration to Israel as well as the United States. I don't know if he was encouraging to the United States, but he was certainly permitting it. It was before the Johnson Act, and part of it was because of all these pogroms that were happening in Russia. He was a big believer in that, and this was when the first Aliyot were taking place in the 1880s, 90s, early 1900s. He was influenced in his Zionism by a prominent Presbyterian minister called William Blackstone, who petitioned Harrison to call an international conference to consider the condition of the Israelites and their claims to Palestine as their ancient home, and to promote in all other just and proper ways the alleviation of their suffering condition. This was signed by John Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court Melville Fuller, Speaker of the House Thomas Reed, and future President William McKinley. And I want to point that this was 6 years before Theodore Herzl actually convened the First World Zionist Congress. Benjamin Harrison looked upon this favorably, but for whatever reason, logistics, it never happened, that first conference. Back to his own personal life. After he was president, he practiced law. He was appointed as the U.S. representative to the International Court at The Hague, Human Rights. He remarried after his wife died, had another child, and he died peacefully in Indianapolis. So all told, that's a fairly, successful presidency as it comes to his relationship to the Jews and, actually maintaining life, a prominent life, but not a turbulent one after his presidency. So that's Benjamin Harrison for you. The next president after him is Grover Cleveland again. We've already done him. So I think after that, I think it's William McKinley, I think. Is that, Laura, you say yes? Okay. So McKinley will be next week. Have not studied him yet, but you'll learn about him next week. All right, so we're about to count the Omer, but I need to talk about the Omer and something that happened in Israel yesterday for a few moments. So today ends, or last night, we began the 33rd day of the Omer. It's called Lag BaOmer, and that's because the Hebrew letters Lamed Gimel spell 33. And it's the day in this, what is otherwise a somewhat mournful period, the time between Passover and Shavuot, where it's a happy time. Parties happen, haircuts happen. There are bonfires and celebrations all over Israel. And that's because on the 33rd day, in addition to this time being between Passover and Shavuot, there's a giant plague happening during the Bar Kokhba revolt in Israel. And during this plague, on the 33rd day of the Omer, the plague stopped. And so as a result, that's why we celebrate Lag BaOmer as a holiday. And because it took place during the Bar Kokhba revolt with, soldiers running around, there's all kinds of athletic events and archery and the bonfires. That's its relationship to it. There's a little bit of a long story to get to the sadness that I'm going to talk about. One of the people involved in the revolt was the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was a great mystical rabbi, but also a supporter, along with Rabbi Akiva, of the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Romans. It's a tradition to pilgrimage to his grave on Lag BaOmer on Mount Meron in the Galilee in Israel. Thousands of people do it, and it's hard to describe this ceremony, and I don't mean to be flip, but it's like part like ultra-Orthodox, convening and part Burning Man. That's really what it's like there. And it's very crowded, and some sort of structure collapsed, and there was a stampede in trying to get out of there, and 44 people, at least, died. So it's a tremendous day of sadness now on a day that is supposed to be the respite, the happiness. And so our thoughts and prayers, and just our hearts and our souls are really with the Israelis and the victims and their families, the people who died during this pilgrimage to Shimon Bar Yochai's grave. So we count the Omer this next day with a certain amount of sadness. And in any case, we do have to rise for this prayer. It's on page 273 as we count the next day after Lag BaOmer, after the 33rd day. Baruch atah Adonai lehenim lechalam asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom arba'a u'shloshim yom shehem arba'a shavuot v'shisha yamim la'omer. Tonight begins the 34th day of the Omer, and may it be a day of healing amidst the sadness. We remain standing for the Aleinu. It's back on page 57. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol la'tet gedula li'otzev reshit shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem vegor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shechu notei shamayim veyoser aretz umoshev yikaro b'shamayim mima'al ushchinat uzo begov miro mi'im hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efezulato kakatu betorato v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim bashamayim mima'al v'ha'aretz mitachat ein od Kagatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'chaya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. May be seated as we lovingly recall the memory of our departed relatives and friends whose yortzites we observe during the coming week. We're thinking especially today of Leslie Berger, Hannah Block, the poet, Charlotte Dane Brodke, Helen Bromberg, Irving Dronsick, Don Eberhardt, Elaine Ehrenkranz, Clarice Akrish Fanning, Jack Fass, Lawrence Friedenberg, Dorothy Goldberg, Erwin Goldberg, Elaine Goodman, Annie Grutman, Julie Gusfield, Robert Hyman, Gussie Castles, Eunice Kelly, Bernard King, Sylvia Good Margolin, Sarah Mendelson, Jeanette Strassman Morrow, Margaret Nagar, Ferengis Francis Noor Omid, Irving Podolsky, Ida Rosen, Harold Rosenberg, Samuel Schecht, Ernest Schern, Heinrich Spritzer, Matilda Ritter Spritzer, Lillian Tuman, Manuel Wasserman, Melvin Weiss, David Wolfs, Pauline Zenkit. We're in the Shloshim for John Alswang and Lou Shotland. We also, of course, recall all those who died in yesterday's tragedy. We ask all those who are in mourning or observing yortzeit and anyone else who would wish to join me in the mourner's Kaddish to do so. It's on page 61. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yom mechon v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivorach le'olam l'almei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shmei dekudsha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimroma hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Zichronam livracha May the memory of the people you are thinking of tonight be a blessing to you always, and let us say Amen. All right, a few announcements. We will be live tomorrow streaming. It's invitation only, but we will have our Saturday morning services as Talia Gordon becomes bat mitzvah here in our courtyard. Next Friday, normal services back in the courtyard. Next Saturday, indoor Shabbat services. You need to sign up for those once again, but please do sign up. We have up to 50 spots. And let's see, Minyan, Thursday mornings, alive. You don't have to sign up for that, 8 a.m. in the sanctuary. Mondays on Zoom only. Shavuot's coming up pretty soon, too. We're going to join in with the United Synagogue, and all the study sessions will be virtual instead of live and in person this year. And there will be confirmation on Erev Shavuot on Sunday night, May 15th, and we will stream that. But that'll be just for the confirmation class. I want to wish the Shubs Mazel Tov on your daughter's engagement. So Stacy Shub, the first bat mitzvah is now first bat mitzvah that I did here, not like the first bat mitzvah ever, or even at Temple with Abraham, or the first female, nothing like that. Just the first bat mitzvah when I arrived here, almost 20 years ago. So anyway, yeah, Mazel Tov to you. I think that's about it for the announcements. Thank you, Alara, for greeting board member. Thank you, Josh, for streaming with our fun multi-camera angle. And let's see. The final song is not in the Siddur. It's a little bit of a mournful song. I don't play it a lot, so I might not do it all that well, but it's called Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda. He's one of the early rabbinic sages, along with Rabbi Akiva and Shimon Bar Yochai and Bar Kokhba. So I sort of feel it's in the spirit of what happened there that I felt like doing this particular song. And it's his statement from Pirkei Avot, which is a lovely statement and not mournful at all, which says, don't look at the bottle, but rather what is inside the bottle. That's what he's saying in this song. I doubt anyone here knows it, but, maybe Alan, maybe Jill. I don't know. If one of you does, let me know. I'd be curious. Amar Amar, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Amar, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Al tistakel b'kankan, ela b'ma sheyesh bo. Al tistakel b'kankan, ela b'ma sheyesh bo. Amar Amar, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Amar, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Shabbat Shalom, and remember, please, let's be safe and careful out there.